Hello, I'm Alex from Andy Best Recaps, and I'd love to tell you a story. And the story begins with a breathtaking scene where a hooded man tries to break into a palace, but comes face to face with someone he recognizes as the feared Silent Man, where he probably thought that leaving the house today was not a good idea. Even so, the intruder tries his luck and attacks with sharp projectiles, but the silent assassin dodges with surreal agility. The two then engage in a physical fight on the rooftops until the hooded man is disarmed. He still tries a dirty trick with the hidden weapon, but his rival is practically untouchable and, with a serene expression, blocks all the attacks, breaks the enemy's leg, and subjugates him. By a twist of fate, the intruder's sword, which had been tossed into the air, now falls towards him, tip first. And, well, you can imagine what happened. After eliminating his rival, the silent assassin enters the target's room and raises his sword for the fatal blow. The scene then cuts from that darkness to a school in Japan, where a girl invites Tsukasa, the student council president, to go shopping, but he politely declines as he's busy with the club budgets. At another table, Hosoyama is praised for her sewing skills, while Yuki makes fun of Chujimura-sensei's bad jokes. And while all this side chatter is going on, we see that nearby a boy identical to the silent assassin named Oda Akira is reading another isekai online, and his classmate Nanase asks for a recommendation. Akira knows his presence is weak. He's barely noticed in class, so he found it strange when a classmate came to talk to him. But that strangeness was soon surpassed by something truly bizarre. Suddenly, an interference appears on his phone, a black hole opens in the classroom ceiling, and shadows pour out of it, forming a figure that emits a bright light, teleporting all the students to a place completely unknown to them. And congratulations, Mr. Anime, you have officially gotten my attention, because I confess I have a huge soft spot for plots like this. Now they are in a gigantic hall where a man appears and announces that His Majesty would like to speak with them. When the king takes the floor, he explains that this world is called Morrigan, and they are in the kingdom of Reedice, the largest on the human continent. Currently, Reedice is under attack by demons, and only a hero from another world has the power to defeat the demon lord. Upon hearing this, Nanase is ecstatic, thrilled to be in a world just like the ones he loves to read about, while the king's representative announces that it's time to identify the hero. At that, the students began placing their hands on a crystal ball, one after another, and we see the first boy, though not the hero, discover that his stats are above normal. Excited, everyone rushes to find out their classes. Nanase discovers he's a wind mage, while Akira, upon checking his personal panel, sees the word assassin, which shocks a grand total of 0 people. So much so that Nanase himself comments that the class suits him. After all, the guy is so quiet that nobody even knew he existed. At that moment, Tsukasa, the popular council president, approaches the crystal, and we discover that he is the great hero. The king's representative is amazed, as normally the maximum attack power is 500, but the hero's is almost double that. While everyone celebrates, Akira, in silence, doesn't understand. The hero's attributes seem normal to him, while his own, however, seems strangely high for a simple assassin. Questioning whether he should reveal his abnormal status, he finds a max-level skill on his panel, Conceal Presence. With that, he makes his decision and activates it, causing him to simply disappear into the crowd. Akira manages to avoid the crystal test and follows his classmates down a corridor. On the way, he looks up at the ceiling and finds a small hidden camera. He assumes with a chill that the people of this kingdom are hiding something. The scene shifts, and by night, our protagonist is taken to a dusty room where his assassin's gear awaits him. Thinking about the camera, he knows he needs information. He then puts on his cloak and leaps across the castle rooftops, impressed by the ease with which his body moves, a bonus from the summoning itself. Noticing a strange movement, Akira conceals his presence and listens to a conversation between the king and the princess, where she says that the brats from a world without magic won't be a problem. Hearing these words, the king orders the plan to proceed, reminding her that the summoned must not, under any circumstances, enter the castle archives, as they cannot know too much. Confirming that the king is plotting something, Akira feels the impulse to draw his dagger and kill him right there, but decides to retreat, at least for now. The next day, during a grand banquet, Akira, still invisible, wonders if he should tell the others what he discovered, but fears no one would believe him. Then the hero Tsukasa arises and gives a fiery speech proposing that everyone use their new powers to help the people of this kingdom and defeat the demon lord. And while his classmates celebrate, Akira finds it pathetic that all of them trust the king's word so blindly. Later, the first squad is formed, and Saran Mithray introduces himself as the commander of the Knights of Redice, announcing that training begins today, and in 1 month they will enter a dungeon. While Tsukasa and the others are grateful, Akira, still hidden, decides that he needs more information and slips away. To his surprise, the commander sees him even with his concealment active.
After a brief chase, Saran confronts him, explaining that his eyes are mystical and can perceive temperature differences. Akira threatens to draw his knife, but Saran calms him, saying he won't tell the king. The assassin asks if the knight isn't on his ruler's side, and Saran replies, "It's complicated." With that, the two decide to sit down and catch up. Akira starts the conversation, saying he wants access to the archives. Saran, surprised to learn that Akira's concealed presence is at max level, offers to help train his other skills, which are still at level 1. Akira, for his part, needs to find a way to get back home to his family. However, Saran doesn't know how to help with that, but advises him to get stronger anyway. After all, it would all be in vain if he died before finding out how to return. He mentions that he can, at the very least, help Akira become a great assassin. In return, Saran asks to learn more about Akira's world. With that, the two shake hands, sealing their agreement. We're explained that in this world, besides humans and demons, there are also elves and beastmen, each race living on its own continent. After this, we see that Akira trained harder than he ever imagined while telling Saran about his world, flying metal vehicles, plates that transmit information to the whole world in a second, and anime recap channels where content creators like, say, Alex express their passion for anime by telling incredible stories, asking in return for a simple like and some hype, plus a subscription. These things are normal for him, but today he misses them. Saran is fascinated, revealing to his second-in-command Gil that the first hero also came from a place called Japan. Speaking of Akira, he finds Saran and reveals he's been sneaking into the archives every night where he found a suspicious little book. With a smile, Saran confirms that the book contains his plans for a coup d'etat, disguised as a recipe book. In the knight's opinion, the king of Redice is losing his sanity, willing to pay a terrible price to change the rules of the world. Akira read that Saran seeks a peaceful end to the reign, but believes it would have been easier if he had just killed him that night. And the truth is, even though he thought about it, he couldn't do it.
Saren believes he made the right choice, as being an assassin doesn't force him to carry the burden of killing, and his mother and sister would be disappointed. The commander reveals that he values Akira not just for his skills, but for his independent thinking. Upon being summoned, he didn't follow the herd, he thought for himself. With his head down, Akira reveals that he has always gone unnoticed, and this was the first time anyone had ever praised him. Hearing this, Siren invites him to help with his plan to overthrow the king, and the boy promises to think about it. Days later, Squad 1 is assembled to explore the Great Labyrinth of Continent. On the way, the heroes are hailed by the people, but our protagonist, using his ability, detects a girl watching him the entire time. With this in mind, he approaches her, concealed, and asks why. She replies that she will only tell him once he discovers how much has already been sacrificed to keep summoning these heroes. Upon arriving at the dungeon, the squad is thrown into real combat. Seeing that the expedition has served its purpose, Siren decides to retreat, summoning his divine sword to exterminate the remaining enemies. However, as they move up a floor, the humans are cornered by a new group of monsters. Tsukasa, the hero, remembers the princess gave him a smoke bomb for emergencies and uses it. But when the smoke clears, it reveals a powerful minotaur in the chamber. In other words, it was a trap. Gil doesn't understand how an enemy of this level can exist on the upper floors. While everyone panics, Akira advances towards the giant bull. After dodging a swing of its axe, the assassin leaps onto the creature's neck and plunges his dagger, but the weapon shatters against the monster's hide. Disarmed, he decides to retreat. Tsukasa wants to fight, but his arm is broken. Akira takes a companion's weapon and tells him to stand down. Frustrated, the hero believes no one will be able to protect their friends, but Akira coldly retorts that a hero must preserve his own life to save the world, and that their allies can take care of themselves. Nevertheless, Tsukasa remains shaken. Akira then asks a disenchanter to check if his comrade is under a curse. Once confirmed, she begins to remove it. Meanwhile, Akira meets with Saren and tells him he's going to try that. Agreeing, the commander tells him to wait for the signal and then summons Lightning Flash, a surreal power that strikes the Minotaur with full force. While the creature is stunned, our protagonist goes after the Minotaur and activates his shadow magic.
So we see Akira's shadow magic transform into a dark pool beneath his feet, but he still can't fully control it. He struggles to use it against the beast, and Saran realizes he'll have to fight again as the Minotaur breaks free from its stun. The monster charges to attack the commander, but to Saran's shock, Akira manages to command his shadow to stop the creature. Despite still learning how to use the ability, Akira creates several shadow spikes that pierce the Minotaur. On top of that, he commands the shadow to drag the beast down, and the spikes begin to pull it into the pool of darkness. Our protagonist strains to control the magic, and with one final push, submerges the Minotaur's body, leaving only its head above the surface. With a single gesture, he sharpens the edge of his shadow pool and severs the beast's head from its body, as the others watch with a mix of awe and fear at what they're witnessing. Akira is completely exhausted after this feat, and just when we think it's all over, something goes terribly wrong. He loses control of the shadow, forcing Gil to yell for everyone to get back. The worst seems imminent, but Saran is there to steady him with a gentle reminder to calm down. Akira heeds his mentor's words, regains his focus, and manages to take back control, ending the spell even though it left him almost completely drained, marking the end of this intense battle. The scene changes, and we see the group has returned to the castle without a single casualty, and Saran says it was all thanks to Akira. The boy, however, gives all the credit to his mentor, since he was the one who kept him from losing control. Saran admits that shadow magic is a mystery he'd never even heard of before, and while it's powerful, it's also extremely unstable. Saran then gives Akira a katana, a weapon forged by the very first hero. Akira wonders why he's giving it to him instead of the current hero, and the commander explains that Tsukasa already has the holy sword. And most importantly, he doesn't want anyone to know about this because he stole it from the kingdom's treasure vault. Shocked, Akira thanks him for the gift. The blade was engraved by the first hero who named it God of the Night Blade. It also had other inscriptions which read, "I hope this reaches you, my successor, and guides you in your hour of need." All this talk about the first hero makes Akira remember the current hero, who was in bad shape in the dungeon. His teacher reveals that the curse afflicting him was vicious, and that in his opinion it was no accident, even mentioning he has a good idea of who was responsible. In another scene shift, that night the princess is practicing some kind of dark magic, saying that Tsukasa will be a false hero, a puppet. Suddenly, she's caught off guard when Akira appears out of nowhere and destroys her dark crystal. She demands to know who he is, but Akira ignores her and declares that his mission to free the hero from the curse is complete. The princess scolds him for entering a lady's room without permission, but he's not playing any games. He points the blade at her throat and says she's no lady, but a witch, and demands to know why she cursed the hero. The princess just repeats that everything she does is for the king, and unable to get any answers, Akira decides to leave. Unfortunately, after he's gone, we see that the princess has several other dark crystals, each corresponding to one of the summoned heroes. Akira reports back to Saran, confirming his suspicions. The commander is surprised that he revealed himself, and Akira explains that he wanted answers. Saran warns him not to sleep in the castle tonight, as he believes the princess will now try to curse all the other students. She won't be able to touch Akira since she knows nothing about him, which makes him an even more dangerous target, and the king will have his soldiers search every corner of the castle until they find him. Akira wonders if his master will scold him, but Saran concludes that bad decisions are a part of being young, and it's the job of adults to fix them. Our protagonist wishes his world had more adults like him, to which the master gets excited and mentions he'd love to leave with him when he returns home, as he'd love to see the world he lived in. His master's excitement made Akira reconsider his wish. The scene then changes to the next morning. Akira decided to sleep in the forest, but was woken up by a lot of noise. He approaches and finds Tsukasa, who wonders where he's been. Akira is happy to see the curse has been broken, but Tsukasa has terrible news about Saran. Akira's heart drops. Without a second thought, he runs to see what happened. Unfortunately, all that awaits him is despair as he finds Saran's lifeless body on the ground, his mentor and only friend with a dagger buried in his chest. In a state of shock, he begs for someone to tell him what happened, but a voice accuses him, saying the dagger that killed Saran belongs to Akira.
He tries to defend himself, remembering that his dagger broke, but no one believes him. They confront him about his disappearances and his mysterious appearance in the dungeon. Because he's shrouded in mystery, he becomes the biggest suspect. And I confess I'm already starting to get angry at these guys.
While Tsukasa defends him, saying it's reckless to accuse him without concrete proof, the king doesn't share the same sense. He immediately declares that Akira has committed the grave sin of killing the commander. The wretched princess flashes a victorious smile, and Akira realizes it was all a setup. Before they can capture him, he uses concealed presence and disappears. The king orders his men to find him, but Akira is still there. He whispers to Saran's closest ally, Gil, who recognizes his voice. Gil reveals that Saran was actually eliminated by the king's personal assassins, the Night Ravens, and that they're after Akira too. Saren suspected something would happen and left supplies for him. Gil tells him to get the supplies and flee the kingdom. On top of that, Gil earnestly asks you, who's watching this recap, to drop a like and some hype to help our boy Akira get through this, and to subscribe and hit the notification bell to help Alex grow the channel and keep bringing you the best recaps. Showing his gratitude, Akira has no choice but to do what his master wanted: grab what he needs, hope for your like and hype, and leave for good. That night, the king and princess celebrate the success of their plan, mentioning that curses were placed on all the students except the hero. All that's left is to justify a war with the East, using the students as pawns. The king is confident Akira won't last long, but he still sends the Night Ravens after him, just in case. As for Akira, we see him entering a dungeon, remembering what Saren told him. If he ever found himself on the run, there was no better place to hide. But surviving there would require planning, as water is limited. Furthermore, dungeons are the best place to level up. Saren warned him, however, that concealed presence doesn't work on monsters with enhanced smell and hearing, but that he could evolve his assassination skill to hide his scent, his footsteps, and even his body heat. He tries to do this, but it's not easy. The dungeon is treacherous and the monsters are incredibly powerful. Despite everything, after weeks, he manages to reach the 69th floor. He remembers the last thing Saren told him. Upon reaching level 100 in his class, he would unlock a special skill. For that, he had to go to the Labyrinth of Cantine and defeat the bosses that appear every 10 floors. And my friends, once you're in the boss room, it's win or die. After defeating the last 6 bosses, Akira now enters the chamber on the 70th floor. The battle begins and he instantly realizes this beast is far more dangerous. Its claws could tear him to shreds with a single blow, and its venom is extremely corrosive. He does his best to evade, but eventually gets caught and has his ribs crushed. Even in agonizing pain, he knows he can't die there. He can't go home, and worst of all, he won't be able to avenge his mentor. The beast tosses him aside like a toy, but Akira has already decided he has to go all out. He activates his shadow magic and a barrage of spikes pierces the creature. Fueled by rage, he commands his magic to tear the monster to shreds. Victory is his, but he loses consciousness, and the monster's acidic blood is still damaging him. While he's unconscious, a voice reveals that his shadow magic has a mind of its own. It enters recovery mode, using the mana reserves hidden within the magic itself. The next morning, elsewhere, Tsukasa announces he wants to set out to fight the Demon Lord immediately. The other students, still in shock over Saren's death, aren't ready. Tsukasa figures this reaction is due to the princess's curse that Gills told him about. He decides to go alone, but a handful of others join him, revealing they managed to break free from the curse. Yuki, a disenchanter, helped them, but Asahina also played a part. He doesn't remember it clearly, but he recalls being in a room shattering many crystals with a katana that he doesn't know where it came from. And if he doesn't know, at least we do. This was Gil's doing. He used his manipulation skill, stronger than any curse, to control Asahina and destroy the crystals, fulfilling Saren's final order. Asahina now thinks about how he needs to connect with Akira as soon as possible, hating himself for not defending him when he was accused. He remembers meeting Akira working outside of school, and the two discovered their younger sisters were best friends.
Back with Akira, he wakes up remembering Asahina and hoping he's doing well. He's surprised to feel no pain and checks his status screen, shocked at his stats. They've increased a lot and his HP's almost full. His shadow magic jumped from level 3 to 5 with a single use and felt easier to control. In any case, he thinks that as strange as all this is, all he can do now is keep moving forward. Akira makes his way down to the 75th floor where he finds a slime monster. Inside it is a girl, an elf, with the most beautiful face he's ever seen. He decides to wait for her to wake up and, in the meantime, decides to test a strange skill he has called World Eyes. But as soon as he activates it, his head feels like it's splitting in half from so much information, so he shuts it down, noting that it's a very dangerous skill.
The elf then wakes up and he asks if she's okay, to which she says yes. But he doesn't believe her, and she wonders why. And why doesn't he believe her, my friend? Because somehow he can see her status screen, which shows her HP at a measly 2%. It might have something to do with the World Eyes ability, and our protagonist notices she has this skill too. The girl calls him by his name and asks what he's doing there. Akira points out that she should have asked for his name first, even if she already saw it because of the ability. Unfortunately, she isn't feeling well and faints in his arms, so Akira carries her to a water source. When she wakes up, he jokes that she was woken up by the sound of her stomach grumbling. He only has water to give her, but she's too hungry, and lucky for her, the porridge he was making is just finished. Seeing her eat like there's no tomorrow, Akira realizes she'll recover soon. The elf wonders how he knows so much about taking care of the sick, and he explains he learned over time because his mother is in poor health. She notices the writings Akira was making on the wall and realizes he carried her from the 75th to the 69th floor just to find water for her.
Even so, she wants to know if he's a creep and if he touched her in any weird places. Akira vehemently denies it and tells her to go back to sleep. Before she drifts off, she reveals that she's royalty. Akira already knew. She says no one has ever done something like this for her and falls asleep. He decides to get some rest too, but can only do so because he activates a Detect Danger spell, extending its range to cover the elf as well. Before she falls asleep, she feels the spell over her and determines that he might be a nice guy after all. The next day, Akira reaches the 80th floor. He slices the stomach of a giant ogre, and the elf uses a gravity spell to crush another. She's all better now, and Akira asks why she's still following him. She says she isn't, they just happen to be going in the same direction. Akira doesn't buy it and says he's not going to protect her. The elf is insulted, saying she can take care of herself. They finally arrive at the next boss chamber where a ferocious dragon appears. Wasting no time, it attacks, and Akira uses Concealed Presence. The elf uses her powerful gravity magic to buy some time, but this dragon is the most fearsome opponent he's ever faced. The beast knocks him away, and the elf says the monster must be tracking his mana. Akira isn't skilled enough to diffuse his mana as she suggests, but her idea gives him an inspiration. He focuses on controlling his mana in a different way. Instead of covering his body, he now uses it as an extension of himself. And it works. The dragon is distracted by a mana arm, allowing Akira to attack it from a different angle. He delivers the lethal blow and still manages to save his companion from being crushed. She can't even comprehend what she just saw, as he explains that he used the mana around him to create something separate from himself. This confuses her, since that shouldn't be possible, since the only person who has ever done anything like that was the first hero. Suddenly, they are both shocked as the dragon begins to glow for some mysterious reason.
And the story picks up right after the dragon's glow fades, and we see he's gotten smaller and turned into a cat. Amelia, still in shock, checks his status and finds out he wasn't a real dragon but a shapeshifter. She explains that this makes a lot more sense, because if that were a real dragon, he definitely would have put up a much harder fight. Suddenly, the cat wakes up, and to everyone's surprise, he starts complaining. He's indignant that he lost to a human. Akira's just like, monsters can talk? But the cat is a total snob, saying he's not just any monster. He was personally created by the Demon Lord himself, has high intelligence, and is way more sophisticated than your average monster. He explains he just wanted to have a little fun pretending to be a dragon, but he took it too far and lost the fight. He then tells Akira he can kill him, but first he has a message from the Demon Lord, and the message is basically an invite to his castle, which is in Volcano, the land of demons. Akira obviously is totally confused. Why would the final boss of the whole game want to see him? How does he even know Akira exists? The cat says he doesn't understand the boss's plans either, but his mission is complete, so Akira can go ahead and kill him. But Akira, being the protagonist that he is, refuses. He says sure, he might be a demon, but he doesn't seem evil. And more importantly, he's got a soft spot for cats, so he'd rather avoid the whole brutally murdering a cute feline part. The cat warns him that the boss room door won't open unless someone dies, and he doubts Akira wants to be trapped there for the rest of his life. And that's when Amelia gets an idea. There's a loophole. She mentions that if Akira makes a pact and turns the cat into his familiar, he'd no longer count as the floor's boss, and the doors would open. However, this ritual requires absurdly precise mana control, and if Akira messes up, both he and the cat could die. Without even flinching, our protagonist just accepts the challenge. Amelia can't understand why he'd risk his life for a cat he just met, and his answer is simple and direct. It's something I decided to do, and I'm going to see it through. Meanwhile, the cat, showing an indifference level of over 9,000, just tells him to do whatever he wants. Our protagonist then asks for the instructions. The first step for the ritual to work is to give him a name. He thinks for a bit and decides to name him Night, because his fur reminds him of a beautiful night sky. Night kinda digs the name, but he plays it cool. The next step is to pour his mana into Night to link their souls. Amelia warns that once he starts, there's no going back. If he fails on the first try, it's game over. But Akira is confident and tells her to relax. He's got this. Right then, Amelia explains that the more likes and hype you guys watching leave right now, the higher the probability the ritual will succeed. And not only that, the more people who subscribe and hit that bell, the more Akira's power, and all of their power will increase. So she's asking you, the viewer, to do your part so their journey can get better and better. He starts the ritual and a bubble forms around them. Akira is pooled into Night's soul. At first, everything seems peaceful, but suddenly he finds himself falling over a city that's being completely destroyed. And the one responsible for the chaos is Night himself, in his giant form in one of his memories of destruction. Before he can cause any more damage, Akira yells for him to stop. Night turns, attacks Akira, and throws him onto a roof. He tells him to draw his blade and kill him right there, because if he doesn't, he'll die. And dying there in the soul world means becoming a vegetable in real life.
He tries to force Akira to fight back, attacking with everything he has. In the real world, a desperate Amelia sees Akira start to bleed from his ears as his soul takes damage. Back in the soul world, Akira charges forward, but instead of attacking, he lets himself be impaled on Night's claws, because he simply doesn't want to kill him. Night doesn't get it. All he had to do to survive was kill him. But Akira says he knows that deep down, Night doesn't want to kill anyone. The cat says it's his monster instinct, but Akira argues that he doesn't have to live like that. He says that as long as Night is with him, he'll take care of him, and his days of destruction are over. And those words, my friends, finally break through the cat's defenses. He decides to trust Akira and calms down in his arms. In the real world, Akira almost passes out from exhaustion, but Amelia catches him. It worked! A pattern appears on Akira's hand and on Night's forehead, symbolizing the pact. Night then swears eternal loyalty to him, saying he has piqued his interest. And with the pact sealed, a teleport circle glows on the floor. Since the cat is no longer the boss, they're now free. Akira thinks that's great, but Night is still weak. Our protagonist just tells him to rest. At this point, Amelia suggests they all sit down and talk to get to know each other while they wait.
The scene then cuts, and we go see what's up with Akira's classmates. They've just arrived in the city of Yamato, a place with a very Japanese vibe, apparently founded by a summoned hero generations ago. They're at an inn, discussing their situation, because their money is running low. Someone suggests they become adventurers to make some cash. Tsukasa thinks it's a good idea, but he's worried because they still know almost nothing about this world, and they can't trust the king or that wretched princess. In other words, they've come to the conclusion that the best thing to do is read as many books as they can to understand this world's history. The group agrees, but their main goal is to get back to Japan. And Tsukasa has a plan for that. Play the part of the heroes, kill the demon lord, and thus force the king who summoned them to send them back. If that plan sounds risky, well, unfortunately, it's all they've got for today. Asahina, however, is against it. He thinks the best move is to wait for Akira, since he is without a doubt the strongest of all of them. One of the classmates protests, saying he still thinks Akira killed Saran, but Asahina tries to explain again that the king used magic to manipulate their memories, but the guy is just thick-headed. Yuki lays down the hard truth. Akira isn't there, and even if he was, why would he want to help them after everything they did? Tsukasa, as the leader, makes the decision. He understands Asahina, but he thinks Akira has always been a loner, and with the absurd power difference, they'd only slow him down. The plan then is to train like crazy to try and, one day, reach Akira's level. Back in the dungeon, Amelia tells her story, and man, what a story, my friends. She was betrayed by her own people, hunted down and cornered by her own sister. With no way out, she used gravity magic to destroy the ground and fell into the ocean. When she woke up, she was in a strange land and was swallowed by a dark slime, where she stayed until Akira saved her. Akira feels bad about her situation, and Knight mentions he doesn't get something, because slimes don't usually eat humans, and he's surprised she wasn't digested. Amelia just says she's grateful to the slime, because thanks to it, she got to meet Akira. Akira suggests she should go home and settle things with her sister, but the elf says she won't, because she doesn't have a home to go back to. He insists they should talk, since they're sisters. But that's exactly why Amelia won't go back. When it's family hunting family, things get even more complicated. Akira laments this, mentioning he also has a little sister and he'd do anything for her. He even remembers working overtime just to buy her a new phone. Yui, at the time, wasn't even happy because she hated seeing her brother killing himself at work for her. Her mom had to explain that he only did it because he loved her. Akira admits he misses them a lot, and it's at this point that he reveals his true goal. He does want to go home, but first, there's something he needs to do. He mentions that Commander Saran was the only one who noticed him, who trained him, who was his friend, and the king murdered him in cold blood just to frame Akira. And he refuses to let that slide. He will have his revenge. After all the talk, and with everyone rested, they decide to use the teleporter. Knight has no idea where it goes, but Amelia remembers a rumor. They say these portals take you to the place you most desire, and if there's more than one person, it chooses one person's desire. They step in and appear in the middle of an open field with a giant tree in the distance. To Akira and Knight, it's just a landscape, but to Amelia, it's a nightmare. She recognizes that tree. They're back on the forest continent, more specifically in the land of the elves. Suddenly, an elf scout in a tree spots Amelia and fires an arrow to kill. Akira, in the blink of an eye, saves her and captures the elf. The guard starts calling Amelia a traitor, but Akira knocks him out before he can finish. But it was too late. While the elf was talking, more elf soldiers appeared, including Amelia's damn sister, whose name is Kilika.
So we get a flashback showing a bit of Amelia's life before all this disaster went down, and we can see things were peaceful. She was in line to rule the Elf Kingdom and had a great relationship with her sister Kilika, or so she thought. Gradually, all her advisors and guards began to turn on her until one day Kilika just accused her of committing a crime out of nowhere. And without investigating at all, the guards concluded Amelia was guilty simply because she was a child of Blight. And because of that, she was forced to flee the kingdom before Kilika and the guards could capture her. So, back to the present. They're face to face again, and Amelia doesn't know what to do. She tries to tell Kilika she'll leave on her own, that there's no need for violence, but Kilika is determined to capture her. However, before she can do anything, Akira steps in front of Amelia to protect her. Kilika asks who he thinks he is to meddle in the affairs of elves, but he shoots back, saying he met Amelia a day ago, he likes her, and he won't let Kilika talk to her like that. He also noticed Kilika keeps calling Emilia a criminal and demands to know what crime she actually committed. In response, the elf pulls up her sleeve and reveals a huge purple bruise on her arm, saying her sister poisoned her with a venom disguised as a potion. And even for royalty, harming another royal is unforgivable. Emilia defends herself, saying it really was a potion, but Kilika gives that damn villain smirk, saying no one will ever believe her. She then walks up to Akira and looks him right in the eyes. Emilia immediately realizes what she's trying to do and yells for her partner to get away, but it's too late. Kilika laughs and declares that her hypnotize skill is already active. That means Akira's heart now belongs to her, and Emilia has no more allies. Kilika expected to see an expression of pure despair on Emilia's face, but what she sees is pure rage. Emilia screams at her sister to undo the spell and apologize to Akira because he should have the right to decide for himself who he loves. And seeing Emilia so shaken up actually startles Kilika. But right then, our protagonist, with the utmost calm, tells Emilia to relax because he didn't fall for her genjutsu. And, well, is it because of a hidden Sharingan? No, not this time. The explanation is that mental skills like hypnosis only work effectively on people who are weaker than the user. And my friends, what a shutdown. Kilika refuses to believe that a low-budget anime protagonist is stronger than her. But he doesn't even care, because he knows that at the end of the day, his strength doesn't come from the anime itself, but from the likes and hype this video gets. So if you want to see our protagonist get stronger and stronger, put your energy into that like and hype button. And of course, subscribe and hit that bell, because that's how the channel ranks up too. After that whole explanation, our protagonist just says she'll have to retract the false accusations against her sister, because even though he doesn't know what really happened, one thing is certain: the Emilia he knows would never be capable of doing such things. Kilika realizes she's not going to convince him and orders her guards to kill him. But before they can attack, the king of the elves appears and tells everyone to lower their weapons and stand down. Kilika is in shock since he was supposed to be away for months. The king demands to know what's going on, and the guards immediately defend Kilika. The king, who's apparently not an idiot, figures out right away that she used her hypnosis skill on them and orders her to release them. He then walks over to Emilia and apologizes, promising that Kilika will be punished. After that, he turns to Akira and tells him to get lost because humans aren't welcome there. The king even thanks him for bringing his daughter back, but he simply doesn't like humans, so it's not up for discussion. However, what he didn't expect was that under these terms, Emilia would decide she was leaving with Akira. The king freaks out, saying he won't allow it since she's the only one he trusts to rule, but Akira shoots back, saying the choice is Emilia's. The king tells him to stay out of it, but Akira, who's not a subject to any king, says he's more than willing to make the king listen to him by force. And seeing the damage Akira did to the guard lying on the ground nearby, the king knows he's not bluffing. The king, who's also not one to back down from a fight, proposes a challenge, a duel. The loser will obey the winner's commands, and Akira immediately accepts the terms. The duel will be at the base of the sacred tree, and it will be Akira versus Kilika. As they walk, Akira asks about that child of blight thing. Emilia explains it's an old legend. When twins are born, one is different and supposedly brings calamity. Knight thinks it's absurd they still believe that, but Kilika used this superstition against Emilia since her eye and hair color are different. And Akira, being direct as always, says he thinks her eyes and hair are beautiful.
They arrive at the secret tree. Akira decides he won't use his concealment skill. He wants everyone to see him win. Emilia warns that Kilika is the strongest swordswoman among the elves, and Akira, to prove his point, decides to fight with his sword still in its sheath. Kilika thinks he's mocking her, but he just says he doesn't want to accidentally kill her. After the verbal sparring, it's time to throw down, and the fight begins. The elf attacks with a series of precise strikes, but he dodges them all. He admits she's good, but we can see that while she may be good, he's definitely even better. With all his agility, he slips past her attacks, shoves her away, and tells her to surrender. But she refuses to be humiliated and activates her trump card, Wind Magic. A violent gust flies towards Akira, but he manages to dodge. Knight recognizes the technique as buff magic. Kilika starts blasting wind everywhere, forcing Akira to run. It's at this moment he notices she looks sad. He asks her why. She denies it, saying she's smiling. He replies that if that's a smile, he can't even imagine what crying would look like. She gets pissed at the comment and attacks again, while he easily ducks under and leg sweeps her. When she gets up, he's already behind her with the sheathed sword at her neck, showing that the fight is over. He asks her again to surrender and make peace with Amelia, and that's when Kilika snaps, screaming that she has nothing because of Amelia, explaining that her divine nature stole everything from her. And she then reveals that when they were younger, it was discovered that Amelia had the priestess class, which would make her one of the strongest people on the continent. And from that day on, nothing Kilika did was ever good enough. And while she's letting all that hatred out, Amelia tries to say it's not true, but Kilika is blind with rage. One of the guards, Liam, the one who got beat up by our protagonist, approaches Amelia and hands her a branch from the sacred tree. She understands the plan. With that, she gets on Knight's back and uses the branch's power to purify and release all the guards from Kilika's spell. This sends her sister into an absolute frenzy. She then unleashes her most powerful wind blast, and Akita is forced to use his shadow magic to counter it. His shadow swallows the wind, knocking Kilika out and completely breaking her will to fight. And with that, the fight is over. At this moment, Amelia and Liam go to check on her, while Kilika asks if they've come to mock her. The elf says he was worried, but she doesn't believe him, thinking he only helped Amelia because the spell was broken. But then, my friends, we get a beloved plot twist, as Amelia reveals that Liam was never under the spell. She obviously thinks it's a lie and asks to be exiled or executed already. However, the plot twists aren't over. The king says that if anyone should be punished, it's him. If I didn't get it, obviously his daughter didn't either. The king then explains he sealed a part of her memories to protect her. After that, he undoes the seal, and the memories come flooding back. We see her memories in a flashback and find out that when she was a child, a stranger gave her a magic orb. She, being naive, used the orb in a dungeon, and it summoned a horde of powerful monsters that started marching towards the village. Kilika stayed to fight and did more than she could to hold her ground. At that moment, Liam arrived to help, but was immediately impaled by a goblin, dying right in front of her. The trauma and guilt nearly broke Kilika's mind, so the king sealed those memories to try to save her. But, my friends, the plot twists just don't stop coming. The king then reveals that although Liam and others died, the situation was saved by Amelia. She used her priestess magic to create 2 new spells, gravity magic and resurrection magic. With that, she revived everyone who died that day. There were no real losses, but since Kilika was the only one who didn't remember anything, everyone unintentionally distanced themselves from her, and she interpreted this as them being jealous of Amelia's class. Realizing she turned her sister into an enemy over a stupid misunderstanding, Kilika breaks down, and the king deserved the Father of the Season award for being so disastrous at trying to solve a situation. But let's move on. While Kilika is crumbling with guilt, Amelia says she could never truly hate her. After all, they'll always be family.
That night, there's a feast to celebrate. The king thanks Akira, and as promised, he lets Amelia decide her future. And obviously, she's going to travel with Akira. The king asks their destination, and Akira says he's heading to the Beast Continent, since Knight mentioned it's a great place to buy equipment. And with all that settled, the scene changes one more time, and we see Asahina, Tsukasa, and the rest of the class getting on a ship. Their destination? The Beast Continent, also to upgrade their gear. Which means a meeting between the groups seems pretty much inevitable.
All right, let's jump to the next morning, where we see the Elf King is preparing a luxury escorts to take Akira and Amelia to the border. Our protagonist thinks this is all a bit much, but the king mentions he doesn't want to leave anything to chance, saying there have been a ton of kidnappings on the coast, and he wants to guarantee their safety. Akira, who clearly has no patience for a royal babysitter, turns down the kind offer and says that for this journey, all he needs is the likes and the hype from you, the viewers, because that way they'll overcome any obstacle. He mentions the only other thing he wants is a carriage, and the king, trusting that you watching will do your part with the like and the hype, agrees to these terms. The scene changes, and during the trip, Akira asks Knight why he was so quiet during the whole drama with the elves. After all, he could have helped. The cat explains, saying he didn't want to reveal he's a demon, since not everyone is as cool with it as Akira is. When asked, Knight confirms his eyes and ears are still linked to the Demon Lord, so the big boss sees and hears everything. But he no longer has control over Knight's actions, and he has zero intention of betraying Akira. Akira is relieved, since he'll probably have to throw down with the Demon Lord when they eventually meet. But that's when Amelia throws a bucket of cold water on that, saying she thinks the Demon Lord actually wants to be friends with him. Knight agrees, saying the way Akira used his shadow magic probably piqued the boss's interest. At that exact moment, Akira's spider sense goes off, and he tells the driver to stop. We then see that up ahead, there's a group of bandits, and they have an elf hostage. The bandits spot them too, and because of that, they threaten the girl and order Akira's group to tie themselves up. But then Amelia gets out of the carriage, and as soon as the bandits see her hair, they just freak out. They recognize her as the elf princess, and immediately start dreaming about the fat bonus that Mr. Graham will pay for her. And while the idiots are over there laughing and celebrating, our protagonist activates presence concealment, and before they even realize it, they're all knocked out before they even understood what happened. Akira then asks the driver to tie the guys up and asks who this Mr. Graham guy is. The driver says he's heard of him. He's a noble from the kingdom of Uruk, the largest nation of the beast folk. With that tip noted, Akira dismisses the carriage right there, and they continue to the port on foot. Sometime later, on the ship, Akira is focused. He needs new gear to level up and eventually avenge Saren. Knight mentions that the port city they're heading to has a labyrinth, which is perfect since they can get new equipment there. Amelia, on the other hand, is all excited. It's her first ship voyage, and she's already being all cute, wanting to watch the sunset with Akira. But when she turns to him, he is completely glued to a book her father gave him as a gift. He's so focused, he barely notices her poking him. And my friends, Akira spends the entire trip reading the book. Seriously, harem protagonists are just the worst sometimes. Anyway, when they finally arrive on the Beast continent, the mood is heavy. Akira notices that only humans are doing the manual labor, and it doesn't take long for a group of Beastmen bullies to show up to start trouble, telling Akira to ditch Amelia and get lost. Akira gets it right away. Humans aren't welcome here. He just asks Amelia to stand back, and instead of starting a brawl, he opts for the classy option, using his shadow magic just to blind the chumps, and walks on by. Walking through the city, he notices a lot of people are staring at them, or more specifically, staring at Knight. The cat explains that here, cats are despised and feared, and honestly, places that despise cats don't even deserve to be taken seriously. Later, at the hotel, after a good meal, Akira suggests they should get some sleep. The room does have 2 beds, but Amelia, showing that limits are for credit cards, drops this gem. They're so big, we could probably just share one. And Akira, obviously, is totally speechless. And Knight, who has tons of perception, plus some ancient wisdom, just says, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." And with that, he just says he's going for a walk and bails to give them privacy. Akira tries to get the cat to come back, but he's already gone. Amelia then announces she's going to take a shower, leaving Akira alone and with no idea what to do. And now, my friends, comes the part that's going to make you mad. Amelia comes back from the shower in a nightgown and finds Akira using the ultimate ninja technique, pretending to be asleep. Amelia, innocently, thinks he's just tired from the trip and simply lies down next to him and goes to sleep. The next morning, Knight returns and, seeing them in the same bed, just assumes the party happened. But, what can you do? He just tells them to get dressed because a guest is arriving. A little later, a man named Crow knocks on the door. The cat explains that he's the best blacksmith on the continent, and he's the one who called him there. Apparently, Knight is known in this region as the Nightmare of Adela. Remember that name. and because of that, Crow couldn't refuse to meet him. Crow analyzes Akira's sword and sees it's totally wrecked. Akira takes the opportunity to ask for about 20 assassin kunai. Crow is surprised and gets a bit snobby, saying Akira seems too inexperienced to use weapons forged by him. Before Amelia can explode, Knight drops the bomb. Crow may be a blacksmith now, but he was once a member of the Heroes Party, and he, even though he thinks Akira is inexperienced, agrees to make the weapons, saying he has one more condition: that you, who are watching and aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe and hit that bell, because that way he'll be able to forge the best weapons possible for our protagonist. On top of that, he also says he'll need materials, and in the meantime, he's going to confiscate Akira's sword so it doesn't get any more damaged. Akira's a little hesitant, but Knight guarantees the guy is the best. The plan now is to go to the city's labyrinth to hunt for the materials. While Akira is preparing, Amelia asks to go out for a bit, saying she wants to talk to Crow. Akira lets her, but asks Knight to go with her and contact him by telepathy if things go south. At the workshop, Amelia mentions she heard that when the old Heroes Party failed, only the hero and one beast man survived, and that beast man was Crow. She then gets straight to the point. She asks him to train her, and obviously he refuses immediately, saying every apprentice he's ever had either ran away or fell into a deep depression. But Amelia guarantees she won't give up. She wants to get strong enough to fight by Akira's side, not just be dead weight.
She then asks why he calls Knight the Nightmare of Adlia. The cat himself decides to tell the dark story. Decades ago, the Demon Lord sent him to the city of Adlia as retaliation for an invasion. His job was just to send a warning, but he was blinded by rage, got a little too carried away, and wiped out the entire city. He says he knows what he did is unforgivable, and that's why he wanted Akira to kill him. But Crow surprises everyone, saying he holds no grudge against Knight. He explains that years ago, after the Heroes Party failed, he was at his sister's grave when Knight found him. He knew that Knight, a tool, wasn't the one to blame, and he didn't blame the Demon Lord either. His sister didn't die in Knight's attack. He explains that she was helping people trapped in the rubble, when a noble, desperately trying to flee the city, blasted her with magic and turned her to ash just because she was in the way. And that noble's name? Yep, my friends, it's that guy, Graham, the same one from the bandits at the start of the episode. Crow swore revenge, but gave up thinking his gentle sister wouldn't have wanted that. And that's when Amelia, showing no mercy, calls him a coward, saying he's using his sister as an excuse to run from reality, exactly like she used to do with Kilika. And guys, that one hit Crow hard. And while this drama is unfolding, suddenly monsters start exploding from the labyrinth and flooding the streets. Amelia sees the chaos and tries to intervene, but she's confronted by a boy named Aoram, and she recognizes him. He's the same bastard who tricked Kilika all those years ago. He says he has orders from the Demon Lord to keep Amelia alive, surrounds her with monsters, and captures her. When Akira finally gets to the scene, Amelia's already gone. All he sees are the monsters. And then, my friends, he prepares himself. He tells Knight to get out of the area. The big cat, knowing that what's about to happen is unleashed, just obeys. And Akira unleashes 100% of his shadow magic, no restrictions, causing the darkness to consume every monster in the area in an instant. But the strain is so great that, right after, he passes out. But before he passes out, he mentions that the intense feeling of rage he's feeling right now is something he never imagined he'd feel in his old life, and it opened his eyes to something simple, but incredibly important. He's only feeling this because for the first time, he started to love someone other than his family, and that someone is Amelia.
We see Knight flying over the area, and when he spots his master on the ground, he flies down desperately to help him. But suddenly, that mysterious system in his body activates, mentioning that due to the excessive use of mana, the system will enter recovery mode, all while enveloping his body to protect it. Knight has no idea what's going on, but moments later, Akira's body is fully healed. The scene changes and we see our protagonist wake up. He's in an unfamiliar bed and asks Knight what happened. The cat explains that he crashed after using his shadow magic, so he brought him to Crow's house. Akira, already panicking, asks how long he's been out, 5 or 6 hours? To which Knight replies, "No, buddy, you were asleep for an entire day and 5 hours," and that leaves him shocked. Knight explains that he drained all the mana from his body and could have very well died. The weirdest part is that while he was unconscious, his own shadow magic activated by itself and completely replenished his mana. Akira is just as clueless as Knight, but he doesn't even care. He's got bigger things to worry about. He jumps out of bed and thanks Crow, but says he needs to go now. Crow, who's the only adult in this room, asks if he's sure. A full day has passed. Amelia could already be on her way to the demon continent. Akira, without hesitating, says if that's the case, he'll just go to the demon continent to get her. And Crow asks, really? And how do you plan to fight demons with no weapons? Akira yells that he'll figure something out, and that's when Crow points to the table, showing that all his gear is right there, repaired, shining, and ready for battle. He mentions they'd been there the whole time, and the fact Akira didn't even notice proves he's completely blinded by rage, telling him to cool his head and get it straight. While Akira takes a deep breath, Crow explains that he split his sword into 2 short blades, which are better for an assassin. And on top of that, he has one more gift, an old ring with the words, "I will lead you anywhere" inscribed on it. The ring was forged by an ancient hero and leads the user to whatever they desire most. When Akira tests it, thinking of Amelia, a kind of red light, acting as a guide, points straight at the labyrinth of Groot. In other words, she's still there. Orem, for some reason, didn't take her away, and knowing that is all Akira needs. He puts on his gear and bolts with Knight. On the way, the cat asks Akira to tone down the ways he puts himself in danger. Akira apologizes, mentioning that he'd forgotten that if he dies, Knight dies too. He promises to be smarter. The scene changes, and meanwhile, in the labyrinth, Orem is there with Amelia held captive. And he's bored, so he decides to monologue. He explains that demons like him can control monsters, but he can't control Amelia, only immobilize her. She asks why they're still there, and he, with total arrogance, explains he's just a third-rate demon in the hierarchy, so he can't teleport. He's just waiting for his boss, a second-rate demon, to show up and pick them up. He then reveals he knows the Demon Lord wants her resurrection magic, and he taunts her, saying that when he kills Akira, she won't be able to revive him since the magic's cooldown is still active from when she revived herself. He mentions he's looking forward to seeing the look of horror on her face, the same look of horror Kalika had all those years ago. This guy's real a bastard. Back on the surface, Akira is arriving at the labyrinth, but he's interrupted by a girl. And she is the same girl he saw at the hero's parade. She asks to help rescue Amelia. Akira didn't tell anyone that Amelia was in the labyrinth, and being the edgy protagonist he is, he immediately grabs her by the throat and demands to know how she knows that. Whoa, easy there, Sasuke. Take it easy, buddy. Anyway, a girl, barely able to breathe, explains that she used her scent tracker skill and followed Amelia's trail to the labyrinth entrance. Knight confirms this is normal for beast folk. Akira lets her go. She introduces herself, Leah Lagoon, the first princess of Uruk, mentioning she received intel that the Demon Lord was after Amelia. Akira asks why she didn't warn them sooner. She explains she had no proof and was investigating, but the demons attacked first. Akira, still suspicious, uses his scan skill. He sees she isn't lying, and he also sees a peculiar skill called Spirit Barrier. She explains she can apply barriers to moving objects, in other words, to people. Our protagonist gets that she'll be useful, and that's when Leah drops the biggest plot twist of the anime so far. She says she was adopted by the royal family of Uruk, and before that she lived in a remote village. One day, a dark slime, the same type that captured Amelia, appeared, and this slime, which is normally trashed here, devoured her father, mother, brother, and all the villagers in a single day. She's sure the slime was modified. She used her authority as princess to investigate and discovered the trail of attacks led to Rechis, the King Kingdom. And she found out why. The lives the slime consumed were used as sacrifices for a summoning ritual. Yes, my friends, the ritual that summoned the heroes.
Leah's family and hundreds of others were sacrificed so the king could summon Akira and the rest of his class. She has a score to settle with the king and the princess, and Akira obviously has one too. Knight then mentions that the whole war against the Demon Lord story is a lie. The Demon Kingdom hasn't attacked humans in 100 years. He needs to keep in mind that just as there are bad humans, there are bad demons. But just as there are good humans, there are good demons who want to avoid conflict at all costs. And well, with this alliance formed, they enter the labyrinth. The plan is simple. They'll defeat an X number of monsters to pass each floor. Akira wants to use his shadow magic, but Knight stops him. He can't get exhausted before the fight with Aurum. He mentions that he can fight using his battle mode, but makes it clear there's a risk. He could lose control to his instincts and attack everyone. Akira then looks at Knight and guarantees that as long as he's there, he'll keep him under control using their mental link. And my friends, Akira is only going to be a good cat psychologist if his confidence is high. And the only thing that boosts a protagonist's confidence more than a speech is your like and your hype. Give him that boost so he can focus. And now that you've done that, Knight transforms, unleashes his full power, and just plows through the labyrinth with Akira and Leah on his back, while Akira keeps him calm through their mental link. After passing countless challenges, they finally reach Amelia's floor. As soon as they arrive, Leah applies a barrier to both Akira and Amelia. Aurum is surprised he got there so fast, and Akira says he's here to take Amelia back. The demon laughs, asking how, when he's about to be dead. The opponent then rushes in, while Akira tries a surprise attack, but Aurum blocks, and starts playing with him. And we can see this bastard is pretty strong and skilled, because he not only dodges but also attacks Akira's limbs, treating the fight like simple entertainment. Akira obviously realizes he's getting his ass kicked. To try and turn things around, he asks you watching to strengthen him with a subscribe and a click on that bell, because that's the only way he can use his maximum power. And now that you've done that, he activates his shadow magic and unleashes a new skill, using his own blood on the ground to summon shadow beasts. This is something neither Aurum nor the future was expecting. Because of that, he's caught by surprise. While the beasts overwhelm him, Akira seizes the opening, rushes in and slashes the demon's arms and legs, leaving him severely wounded. As a last resort, Aurum summons the labyrinth monsters to attack Akira, but Leah activates an inverted spirit barrier which reflects all the attacks right back, killing the monsters. Now Aurum has no tricks left. He's down, defeated, at Akira's mercy. And, well, Akira just hesitates. He can't bring himself to deal the final blow. And why? Simple, because the demon looks too much like a human. And he hesitates for so long that Aurum's boss finally shows up. His name is Mahiro, and he's a second-rate demon. And well, Akira, who already struggled to beat the assistant, now has no idea what to do against the manager.
Knight warns Akira that he needs to avoid facing the demon head-on at all costs. He can already tell that Mahiro is on a completely different level. Mahiro, seeing that his assistant Aurum is done for, uses his power to toss him to the back of the room, essentially taking out the trash. Right after, he launches a ribbon of energy that shatters Leah's barrier like it was glass. She tries to create another one, but Akira tells her to fall back. Mahiro agrees, saying he has no business with her. His business is with Amelia. He launches another ribbon that slams Amelia against the wall. Akira rushes to check on her. The demon, calm as ever, says she's alive, just immobilized. Akira glares at the demon with a murderous look, but he knows he can't win. He starts thinking of a way to escape. But Mahiro is smart. He catches onto the plan and seals all the exits of the labyrinth. Now, the only option is to fight, but Akira has already used his shadow magic and is running low on energy. That's when the demon asks a bizarre question. Is your name written like Oda Nobunaga's, or like the one that means rice field? Akira is shocked. The only way he could know the difference is if he's also from Japan, and Mahiro confirms it. His name is Mahiro Abe, and he was also brought here from Japan. He says it would have been nice to meet under different circumstances, but his mission is to capture Amelia, and to do that, he's gonna have to kill Akira.
My hero attacks with energy blasts. Akira tries to dodge, but my hero controls the projectiles mid-air and hits him in the shoulder. Dodging isn't going to work. Akira tries to close the distance, but he's not fast enough. Out of options, Akira activates a limited version of shadow magic to absorb the attacks. My hero's intrigued, having never seen that magic before, but he notices Akira is almost out of mana. At that moment, Knight calls out to Akira. He's recovered a bit of strength and can help him. My hero recognizes the cat and asks if he's switched sides. Knight confirms he no longer serves the Demon Lord. He then speaks to Akira through their mental link and says he needs to nullify their contract right now. Akira doesn't get it. Knight explains there's a way to defeat my hero, but he will die in the process. And since they are linked, if Knight dies, Akira dies. He wants to sacrifice himself to save his master. But Akira refuses immediately. He says that together they have a chance. No need for sacrifice. Knight thinks it's risky, but Akira says it's worth the risk if Knight survives. Knight, respecting his master's crazy decision, uses his last bit of energy to transform. And who does he transform into? A perfect copy of Captain Saran. In this form, he has all of Saran's abilities. He creates a giant hammer of light. My hero is forced to defend, but the light strengthens Akira's shadows. Akira seizes the moment, covers himself in shadows, and attacks. Together, Akira and Saran Knight start pressuring my hero. Akira manages to land a slash on the demon's back. Knight warns that the transformation is about to end, but Akira says the next attack will finish it. But my hero still has a trick up his sleeve. He snaps his fingers and, in the next second, Amelia appears behind Akira and drives her hand through his chest. She was being controlled. As soon as the effect wears off, she screams in horror. Akira, even though he's bleeding to death, tries to comfort her, saying it wasn't her fault. He tries to stay alive, saying he can't die before achieving his goals. But the color fades from his eyes. Akira's body goes cold. He died. But wait, my friends, remember that mysterious system. As soon as Akira's heart stops, the system recognizes the fatal damage and activates recovery mode. Energy envelops Akira. My hero sees this and tries to ensure the kill with another attack, but the system creates an impenetrable barrier. Akira stands up, but he's not the one in control. The system determines my hero is a threat and enters battle mode. The system Akira charges. He uses shadow magic with brutal efficiency. He blocks an attack from my hero and binds him with shadows. The system warns my hero, undo the spell on Amelia and leave if you want to live. But my hero refuses and decides to target Amelia to force Akira to sacrifice himself. The system doesn't care about Amelia, but Akira does, and seeing Amelia in danger is enough to snap his consciousness back. He runs to protect her with his own body. But before the spikes hit him, my hero's magic dispels, and the one responsible? Crow. The blacksmith came down because he was worried. Finally, someone responsible in this anime. My hero is surprised to see Crow alive, thinking he died decades ago. Not wanting to risk a fight against Crow, who must be OP too, my hero decides to retreat. He creates a teleport circle and flees with Aram. Akira is relieved it's over and faints from exhaustion. He wakes up 3 days later. Amelia and Knight were waiting. Shortly after, Crow enters and brings guests. And to no one's surprise, or maybe everyone, it's Akira's classmates, Takasa, Asahina, and the rest of the gang. They found out Akira was there because Gil, Saran's friend, has known Crow for a long time. They explained that Gil helped break the king's curse on all of them. Gil was fired from the Knight's Order because the king thought they were getting in the way. Classic move from that useless king. Asahina invites Akira to join their group. Knight protests immediately, saying he's the only partner Akira needs. Man, cat jealousy is real. Akira asks everyone to chill and asks what their plan is. Takasa says they want to go after the Demon Lord to gain influence and negotiate with the King of Ratis to send them home. Akira, and I agree, thinks this plan is total crap. Negotiate with the guy who tried to mind control them and killed Saran? Akira says he's not doing anything with that king. They ask what Akira is going to do. He says my hero knows how to create teleportation, so he might know how to get home.
Akira's plan is to infiltrate the Demon Lord's castle, make my hero talk, and avenge Saran. Hearing this leaves Amelia conflicted. She leaves the room. Akira goes after her. He finds her on a cliff. She apologizes for what she did in the labyrinth. She confesses something heavy. For a moment, she was happy to hurt him, because she thought that if he went back to his world, he'd forget her. But if she died by her hands, he'd never forget her. Is that love or is sickness? I'll let you decide. Akira doesn't know what to say to that, but he knows what he feels. He tells her about wedding rings in his world. Since he doesn't have a ring, he takes his sword and cuts a ring around his finger. Talk about a blood pact, literally. He says he loves her and wants to be her partner for life. Amelia, crying with joy, makes the same cut on her finger. She asks him to promise 3 things: that he won't die, won't forget, and will never leave her. Akira swears to do everything in his power, and the two share a beautiful kiss as the sun rises.
Meanwhile, back at the house, Akira's classmates are trying to figure out a way to prove their worth to our protagonist. One of them remembers hearing about a string of recent disappearances in a nearby city. Apparently, there's a festival with a contest this time of year, but for some bizarre reason, every winner disappears, and rumors say they're being trafficked on the black market. The group's plan is simple. If they solve the mystery and shut down the trafficking ring, maybe Akira will reconsider teaming up with them, or at least stop seeing them as dead weight. Worth a shot, right? But they don't want to tell Akira the plan straight away, so they make up an excuse, saying they're all heading to the city to enjoy the festival. Amelia is interested immediately, since festivals sound fun, and since there's a beauty contest, she'd love to participate. Once they arrive in town, the elf and the others head straight to the registration booth, but they find a woman arguing with the rep. She's complaining that it's unfair. Everyone else gets to sign up with no issues, while she's being rejected just because of her race. Akira approaches to see what's going on, and the woman introduces herself as Lottie, explaining she was barred from the contest for being a demon. Our protagonist is shocked because she's nothing like Oram or Mahiro. But Amelia doesn't like Lottie getting close to her fiancé one bit, so she steps in between them, slams her ID on the table, and signs up. The rep is amazed to find out Amelia is an elven princess, as she wasn't expecting someone of that status. While signing the papers, our heroine turns to Akira and sends a message. He is forbidden from flirting with anyone but her. He says he wasn't flirting, and Lottie apologizes for the misunderstanding, saying she's a bit touchy out of habit. But back to the main problem, the demon is still upset with the rep, since denying her entry based on racism is not cool. The staff member admits she only rejected her because she's a demon, since the race has a terrible reputation, and she fears Lottie's presence might cause trouble. If that's the only issue, Akira says he'll take responsibility for Lottie to ensure nothing bad happens. The rep accepts the deal and allows the registration. The girl is radiant and thanks him profusely, but then she notices Night on the ground and asks why she is there. The cat seems a bit nervous seeing Lottie again, but explains he formed a contract with Akira and is now his familiar. Our protagonist is curious about how they know each other, but Knight says it's a long story for later. Since there's still time before the contest, Laddie invites the couple to walk around the festival, and Amelia agrees, so Akira goes along with it. Later, the demon announces her participation to the public, and to secure votes, organizes a handshake and autograph event, starting to draw a crowd. Akira thinks it's weird for a demon to be so social, but Knight says she's always been like that. Either way, Amelia doesn't get any bad vibes from her and thinks her new friend is pretty nice. Just then, 2 girls spot Akira and freak out, calling him the Silent Assassin. He has no idea what that means, but Crow explains that a lot of people saw him use dark magic to defeat the monsters when Oram attacked, and since then, he's become famous with that nickname. As a result, he earned a promotion at the guild. The blacksmith forgot to give him the new badge when he woke up, so he hands it over now. Akira was promoted to yellow rank, but since he has no reference, Amelia explains she's silver and Kilika is gold. Technically, our protagonist should be much higher, but the guild doesn't know half the crazy stuff he's done in dungeons. Right after, Akira's female classmates call Amelia to check out a stall with rare foods. She runs over immediately, while the guys decide to enter a raffle. Akira asks Knight to follow the elf and make sure she doesn't get into trouble. He obeys, but as he walks down the street, many people back away, still afraid of cats. Now it's just Akira and Crow at the table. Our protagonist doesn't understand why the blacksmith came along, since he doesn't seem like the type to enjoy festivals. Crow explains what Akira already knows. His sister was killed by the noble Graham, and he didn't take revenge before because he thought she wouldn't want that. But even if he wanted to, it would be impossible now. His strength has faded over the years, and Graham is always surrounded by strong guards. On a completely different note, the blacksmith recalls how Akira saved him in the dungeon days ago. If not for that, he'd be dead, so he owes a debt. And there is something Crow would like him to do. As Akira listens to the request, his eyes go wide. Crow understands it's not an easy decision, so he tells him to take all the time he needs to think. Just then, Jill shows up, saying they need to secure lodging. Crow gets up and tells Akira he got the best seats in the stadium for the contest, so he can head over. At the stadium, the contest is in full swing. The girls are giving it their all with their dresses and performances, but none stand a chance against Amelia's beauty. From the moment she steps on stage, it's clear she's the favorite, and Akira can't take his eyes off her. She looks so dazzling. By now, everyone expected the elf to be declared the winner. But there's one contestant left, Lottie. When her name is called, she walks to the center of the stage in her cloak, pauses for a moment, places some magic stones on the ground, and does the same elsewhere. The crowd is confused, but a second later, she throws off the cloak, revealing her true outfit and an amazing light show accompanying her performance. The fans love it so much, her name shoots up the leaderboard, and she ends up tying with Amelia for first place. After the contest, everyone gathers outside, a bit disappointed by the tie, even with the extra effort of the light show. But Akira says it's no surprise since Amelia is exceptionally beautiful. Lottie admits the elf is indeed pretty, but is determined to win next time, so she asks if Amelia would compete next year. The elf says she'd be happy to, as long as her fiancé is okay with it. But then Knight interrupts, asking if Lottie should really be drawing so much attention, because at this rate, her father might get upset. The girl says she doesn't care, since she fought with her dad and ran away from home, which is why she's here. The cat figured that was the case. Akira finds his familiar's concern for the girl's father strange, so he asks who she really is, and Knight drops the bomb. She is the daughter of the Demon Lord, which leaves everyone in shock. Meanwhile, the whole time, Graham has been monitoring the group via security cameras and decides it's time to act. His bodyguard asks if they should handle it, but the noble doesn't think it's worth sending his best men yet. He just orders increased surveillance as he plans to secure and deliver the package the demons failed to get, despite the intel he sold them. Back with the group, Lottie shows her status screen to calm everyone down, and the numbers are insane. But being a high-level demon, it shouldn't be a surprise. Minutes later, Crow and Jill return, saying they found an inn with rooms for everyone. Seeing Lottie, they ask if she wants to stay with them too. She appreciates it, but plans to camp out, knowing most people would be uncomfortable sleeping in the same building as a demon. In that case, Amelia suggests they meet tomorrow for the award ceremony, but Akira finds the delay strange. Arriving at the inn, Tsukasa explains the preparations weren't ready in time, so they postponed it to the next day. Our protagonist thanks him for the explanation, but asks why the hero knows so much about it. Tsukasa informs him he entered the contest in the men's division and won first place. Amelia asks if the prize is food, and the hero isn't sure, but offers his if it is. Aside from that, it's getting late, so everyone decides to bathe and sleep. Amelia asks if Akira wants to bathe with her, but he says men aren't allowed in the women's bath, so no chance. Crow then checks if Akira hasn't forgotten their earlier chat. The boy says he'll think about it, but needs more time. Amelia realizes her beloved has a lot on his mind, so she drags him to bed and apologizes in advance for what she's about to do. Since he hasn't slept much, she casts a forced sleep spell and he passes out instantly. She then goes out to confront Crow, saying he can't force Akira to do something he doesn't want. But the blacksmith says he has no intention of forcing anything. He only asked a favor, and the decision is entirely the boy's. Besides, he's going to cross that line eventually, and most likely, the desire to protect Amelia will be the push he needs. Crow leaves, leaving the elf with a lot to think about, wondering if Akira would really sacrifice his ideals just to protect her. The next morning, Amelia and the others meet Laddie to go to the ceremony, but the demon notices Akira isn't there. The elf explains he's still sleeping. She didn't expect him to sleep so long with the spell, but since he was exhausted, she thought it best to let him rest. Meanwhile, Akira's classmates are gearing up for battle, sure the traffickers will attack during the ceremony. But they haven't told Amelia anything, and actually, they're glad Akira isn't there. If he knew, he'd handle it all alone, giving them no chance to prove their worth. They plan to keep their guard up while entering an abandoned building that is giving every possible sign that something bad is going to happen there. And, well, to the surprise of 0 people, a group of masked men emerges from the shadows and demands Amelia go with them because Graham wants to see her. But she already knows everything the noble did to Crow's sister and about the slave ring he runs, so she refuses. The attackers draw weapons, saying she has no choice. Just as they're about to attack, Akira's classmates prepare to fight back. But before they can do anything, Amelia casts several gravity spheres and pins all the attackers to the ground in an instant. She walks up to one of them and demands to know what Graham intended to do with her. As she threatens to crush him into paste, the guy cracks and reveals the noble has been kidnapping all past contest winners to sell on the black market. Amelia is furious and is about to crush the attacker for good, but before she can, Laddie suddenly stops her. She understands the attackers are bad people, but doesn't think it's right to kill them. Amelia points out they drew weapons first, and Laddie gets that, but argues these guys were just following orders and likely have their own stories or circumstances. Unless absolutely necessary, she won't let anyone be killed in front of her. While the debate between them goes on, we see that Akira is somehow monitoring everything that is happening, as he seems to have his consciousness connected to Amelia in some way. He thanks the heavens for Laddie stopping Amelia from dirtying her hands, and wonders if she would feel the same way if it were Akira involved in a situation like that.
Later, Akira is chatting with Jill and asks how he knows Crow. The knight explains that a long time ago, the blacksmith used to accept disciples, and one of those students was Jill's mother. But she couldn't handle the harsh training and ended up losing her sanity. At the time, the boy had no one else to take care of him, so Crow took him in. He holds no grudge for what happened to his mother, since it was her choice to undergo the training, and the blacksmith is a good person who has helped many people, including our protagonist. He knows about the request his master made, and regardless of Akira's decision, he warns that despite his healthy appearance, Crow doesn't have much time left, so the boy better decide soon. Just then, Knight returns with an update on the investigation Akira asked for. He discovered there was a surveillance device planted under Graham's orders, and the goal was to monitor the contest winners, which includes Amelia. Hearing this, our protagonist realizes he's going to have to deal with the noble once and for all. Shortly after, the others return to the inn. Since everyone is together, Akira calls Amelia, Asahina, Tsukasa, and Crow to the back room because he needs to discuss something important. Asahina asks if this means he's joining the group, but before answering, the assassin questions if it's true they only entered the contest because they suspected the winners would be targets. Tsukasa admits they wanted to prove their worth by stopping the kidnapping, but in the end, they didn't do much since Amelia handled everything herself. Akira says he already knew what they were capable of, so they didn't need to prove anything. But before deciding if he'll join them, he needs to ensure Graham never threatens his fiancée again. Crow is happy to hear the boy wants to take care of Graham, so he informs him the noble is in the city of Yurok, where he acts as the guildmaster of the Adventurers Guild.
He adds that if Akira fulfills his request, he can personally guide him through the demon continent, and his experience will be very useful there. Since our protagonist is heading to Yurok, Jill offers to take the rest of the hero party and wait for him on the outskirts of the demon territory. He pulls out a map and asks where they'd like to meet. Asahina points to a spot, but Crow vetoes it immediately. No one understands why, until Jill remembers the blacksmith's mother lives around there, and he doesn't want to see her. Akira is confused since Jill said earlier that Crow was dying of old age, but his mother is still alive? The knight says it's a long story. The blacksmith suggests another location, an old hideout of his party, and everyone agrees. Later that night, Amelia and Crow finish packing for the trip to Yurok, but our protagonist is still out buying books since the trip will take 5 days and he hates having nothing to do. Taking advantage of the moment alone, the elf says she has 2 things to say to the blacksmith. First, she asks him to stop putting his burdens on Akira's shoulders. But Crow says he only made a request, and whether he sees it as a burden or not is not his problem. Amelia gets annoyed with the attitude, but can't argue much because she also has a request. She asks him to accept her as a disciple. He already refused once, so he asks why he would change his mind now. The princess begs him to reconsider because she is being targeted and doesn't want to be the reason Akira is forced to do things he doesn't want to. Crow sees she's serious and knows she's stronger than average, thinking that as long as she doesn't break like his other students, maybe it's worth it. The elf promises she won't succumb, so the blacksmith agrees to train her. Shortly after, Akira returns and it's time to leave. But before they go, Jill says he has something for our protagonist. When Akira grabbed the stuff Saran prepared, he forgot a small bag on the chair. The knight doesn't know what's inside, but if Saran left it, it must be important. After that, the groups separate. 3 days later, in Akira's carriage, Amelia is focused on training, but is on the verge of passing out, and her master tells her to stop for the day. She thanks him and goes to sleep immediately to rest as much as possible, and our protagonist, seeing this, thinks he's never seen her so tired. The blacksmith comments it's impressive she made it this far in just 3 days, since most would have given up on the second, confiding that deep down he expected no less from the famous elf princess. The technique Crow recreated from the first hero allows one to instantly generate a counterspell to nullify any magic just by observing it. This is incredibly difficult to master, as it requires learning an ancient language where each letter contains magic capable of driving a person insane.
The only reason Amelia can handle it is because she created a comprehension skill to lighten the mental load, something no ordinary person could do. Akira asks how Crow learned it if it's so hard, and he says he had a lot of time. Most beast folk live twice as long as humans, but Crow's case is different. His mother took a weird drug while pregnant, so he's already lived twice as long as he should have. Living longer might sound good, but at this point he just wants it to end, and the only thing keeping him alive is revenge for his sister. Our protagonist can't say he understands, since as a human he'll live about 100 years, but he realizes the guy's life has been rough. Meanwhile, Knight is in the city gathering intel, but notices Laddie sitting on a nearby roof. As soon as she sees him, the demon runs over excitedly and asks what the cat is doing alone. He explains nervously that he's gathering intel for Akira, and she thinks it sounds fun and asks to join, since she has nothing better to do, and the cat can't say no. The scene changes to the next morning, where Akira's group arrives in Yurok. While Crow goes to arrange lodging, the couple has some free time to sightsee. Our protagonist likes the idea of quality time with Amelia, but since he doesn't know the city, he's afraid of getting lost. But Crow already thought of that and contacted Leah to be their guide. She should arrive in an hour, so he asks them to wait at the central fountain plaza. Since it'll take a while, Akira suggests treating this like a real date. On the way, they stop at several food stalls, and the boy says she can order whatever she wants as a reward for her effort in studying ancient magic. Shortly after, they arrive at the fountain and Leah appears excitedly, saying she's happy to see them and informs that everyone at the castle is eagerly awaiting their arrival. Akira is shocked and asks why, to which the princess explains that her adoptive father, King Igzam Lagoon, heard Princess Amelia was visiting and prepared a banquet in her honor.
Upon arrival, they are introduced to the king, who says he is delighted to meet Amelia again and thanks her for saving Leah in the dungeon. The elf says there's no need to thank her, as the situation only happened because she was kidnapped, and the ones who really saved Leah were Akira and Crow. In that case, the king says he'll thank Crow later, and our protagonist finds it funny the king didn't even bother thanking him, even though he's standing right there. However, the monarch addresses him and says he has a request, to which he replies he's listening but guarantees nothing. The knight captain takes offense at the attitude and yells at him for speaking to the king that way, but the king tells the captain to calm down and explains he wants Akira to assassinate someone. And as soon as he hears those words, our hero refuses immediately. The king tries to convince him, explaining the target is Graham, who committed heinous crimes and stained the royal family's name. But even though Akira already plans to deal with Graham, he doesn't want to do it because the king ordered him to, so he refuses again. The king tries to persuade him with rewards and protection, but Akira says he doesn't need protection from people weaker than him. And that last comment makes the knight captain boil with rage. He can't believe that nobody calls him weak and asks permission for a duel. Since both Akira and the king agree, the fight is set. They go to the arena, and before starting, Akira tosses his sword to Amelia because he doesn't think he'll need it to win. Besides, it's the perfect chance to test the extra weapons Crow made. The fight begins. The captain charges and throws several rocks, but the assassin dodges easily. The captain is fast and strong, but Akira expected that. After playing around a bit, he decides to end the farce, jumping straight at the opponent, slicing his axe to pieces, and then placing a dagger at his throat. After Akira is declared the winner, Amelia asks the king if he'll drop the subject now. Igzum agrees to withdraw the request and not bother them anymore, but comments he finds it strange the elf chose a human as a partner, since her life is much longer, and she will inevitably watch him die. Hearing this, Amelia's expression darkens, as she was trying to ignore this inevitable problem, but knows the king is right. The scene changes, and later, on the way to meet Crow, Akira asks why she's been so sad since the duel. She deflects, saying she's happy to be with him, but the boy says he's the one who should be thankful, since she left her family to come with him.
Amelia gets emotional, saying she doesn't know what she'd do without him, and blurts out, "If you die, I'll make sure I die with you." And Akira doesn't understand where that came from. When they meet Crow, he takes them to a fancy hotel. Amelia gets excited about the giant bed and invites her fiancé to test it out, but he says he'll have to take a rain check because he needs to finish reading some books. In other words, he chickened out. Our protagonist mentions he still plans to avenge Saran after resolving the Graham situation, and Crow thinks that's perfect. Akira doesn't understand what he means, to which the blacksmith explains, mentioning Saran was killed by the night ravens of the king of Redis. But the one who supplied those assassins was Graham. In other words, without Graham's involvement, Saran would still be alive. And this information completely changes Akira's perspective on the matter because, my friends, now it's not just about justice. Judging by our protagonist's look, it just became personal.
The scene develops, and while Akira is still perplexed by the revelation, Amelia isn't even fazed. She says she had already figured out Graham must be involved somehow. But if she already knew, Crow asks why she kept it a secret from Akira. The elf dodges the question and asks the blacksmith about the request he made for her fiancé to kill the noble. Crow says the boy was always free to decline if he wanted. Of course, declining would mean the blacksmith wouldn't guide them through the demon continent, and they still haven't paid him for the weapons, or the tracking ring, or the fact he saved their lives in the dungeon. Amelia cuts him off, saying she gets they owe him a lot, but even so, she doesn't want her fiancé to be forced to do something against his morals. However, this time Akira cuts in. He says this is a decision he has to make alone. If what Crow said is true, then Graham is part of the reason Saran died, and on top of that, he's hunting Amelia right now, so it makes total sense to kill him before he causes more damage. The blacksmith also warns that the noble's assassination squad is immensely powerful thanks to a drug he creates. This drug forces a soldier's latent potential out but destroys their ego, turning them into a mindless puppet.
Graham can mass-produce these soldiers, making him a terrifying force. And one of his biggest clients are the demons, to whom he supplies intel and does dirty work in exchange for rare materials from the demon continent. Every day, the villain becomes more influential and dangerous, so if Akira is going to take him down, it better be soon. Our protagonist knows his friend is right, but he still has a lot to think about, so he decides to rest to clear his mind. The next morning, the couple returns to the lounge to meet Crow. He asks if the boy rested, and Akira says he's fine, but still hasn't decided. Just then, there's a knock at the door, and Leah walks in, looking very apologetic. She came to apologize for the way her father treated Akira earlier, as she had no idea he would try to dump his dirty work on our hero. Crow is intrigued, since it's the first time he's hearing about this. The protagonist explains that the king also tried to hire him to kill Graham, but he refused. To the blacksmith, it makes sense. If the noble's crimes were exposed, it would destroy the royal family's authority. But if they tried to stop him and failed, it would reveal their weakness. So the king probably decided to use a disposable pawn like Akira. The assassin admits the king annoyed him, but he doesn't blame the princess for it, so no need for apologies. Still, Leah wants to make it up to them. She offers to show them around the city again. Crow thinks getting some fresh air is a good idea. Akira agrees and says they'd love to join her. She beams, but before leaving, turns to the blacksmith and asks if he'd like to come too. During the outing, the princess explains the city is famous for its tourist attractions, so there's still a lot to see. She suggests starting with a tour, then lunch, a stroll down the main street for shopping, and ending the day at the theater. While the couple discusses what to eat for lunch, Leah walks closer to Crow and says she's happy he came because it really cheered her up. Amelia takes one look at how the girl acts around the blacksmith and figures it out instantly. So she suggests the group split up. Leah gets worried, thinking the couple is still upset about what happened at the castle, but the elf assures her that's not it. She says she just wants some alone time with her fiancé. The princess doesn't seem convinced, but Crow steps in, saying those two probably have private matters to discuss. He suggests they meet at the fountain at sunset to watch the play together. Leah agrees, loving the idea of being alone with the blacksmith, and they go their separate ways. As soon as they're gone, Akira asks Amelia why she did that. She explains she noticed the princess likes Crow romantically, so she wanted to give them a chance to talk alone. Our protagonist had no idea, but finds it a bit weird, since he remembers Crow mentioning he's known Leah since she was a baby. But Amelia insists it's not that bad, because beast folk live longer than normal humans, so age is just a number to them. And at this point, I just thought Amelia is only trying to justify her own relationship with a short-lived human, but let's move on. She says playing Cupid wasn't the only reason. She also has something to talk to Akira about, mentioning he doesn't need to accept Crow's request. She's sure they can cross the demon continent on their own, and as for the money they owe, they'll figure it out. The reason she hesitates about Akira killing someone is because she remembers what Laddie said. Even villains have a story, so we don't have the right to take their lives. Speaking of Laddie, she's still following Knight around because she has nowhere to go and just doesn't want to be near her dad. The cat always knew the girl and her father didn't get along, but he never imagined it would get to this point, and he still doesn't know why she ran away. They come across a small inn. Laddie gets curious, and the cat explains that adventurers usually stay in places like these. She notices a lot of horses in the stable, and Knight says carriages swap horses there to save time. Curious, she heads inside. The boy at the front desk says food isn't ready, but there's bread and alcohol. She orders bread. While she eats, the boy assumes she's an adventurer heading to Uruk. He warns her to be careful there, because the guildmaster, a guy named Graham, loves giving shady transport jobs to adventurers. No one knows what he's sending to the kingdom of Ratis, but it can't be good. Meanwhile, in Uruk, Akira tells Amelia he understands her point, but he had already decided to avenge Saren long before meeting her. And killing Graham also means he won't come after her anymore. The elf assures him he doesn't need to worry about her safety, as she'll get strong enough to take care of herself. But be that as it may, Akira also doesn't want to abandon Crow. The blacksmith has spent decades unable to get his revenge, and the guild consumes him day by day. Akira wants to help him. Meanwhile, on Crow and Leah's side, he takes her to an unknown location and refuses to say where until they arrive.
The princess goes along, happy just to be with him, but a little annoyed by the secrets, like when he refused to teach her his inversion spell. The blacksmith says he only didn't teach it because he didn't want to risk breaking someone he cares about. Shortly after, they arrive, and Leah is amazed to see a beautiful field of red flowers. Crow explains he stumbled upon this place yesterday and wanted to show someone. She thinks it's beautiful and tells the blacksmith that if he ever falls in love, he should bring the person here to confess. This catches him off guard. He asks why she said that out of the blue. She explains he's been alone for a long time, and she thought he'd be happier with someone by his side. Crow admits she's right, but although finding a partner might make him happy, he says he has no intention of being happy, because from the day he chose to avenge his sister, he gave up on his own happiness. And he is currently trying to make Akira go against his morals for the sake of that revenge, so he doesn't think he deserves to be happy. Meanwhile, Akira's classmates are in the forest. Tsukasa and Asahina just killed a bear, securing dinner. Everyone works together to set up camp before dark with traps all around, but the hero can't help thinking things would be better if Akira were with them. To be honest, Tsukasa never really liked Akira, even back in Japan, because he always ignored him in class. But Asahina says our protagonist wasn't trying to be mean, he just didn't pay attention because they had nothing in common. After all, Akira was only friends with Asahina because their little sisters were friends. Tsukasa assumes this means Akira still has no interest in being around him. After all, the assassin is much stronger than any of them. And although this world calls them heroes, the truth is they are barely stronger than an average person. All their growth could have been done by anyone. But for some reason, Akira's situation is different. And while the hero admits he's a bit jealous, the strength gap also motivates him to work harder to catch up. At the same time, back in the city, Emilia asks Akira if he's decided to kill Graham or not. He says it's the logical decision. But that's not what she meant. She personally doesn't care if he kills or not, but she doesn't want him to end up hating himself for the decision. She wants him to be absolutely sure. At that moment, Akira spots a nearby family, where a little girl is yelling she doesn't want to go home yet because she likes it there. Seeing this triggers a flashback to his childhood. They were moving, and he was helping his mom pack boxes, but Yui, his sister, refused to participate because she didn't understand why they had to leave their home. Long, sad story short, Akira's mom had a terminal illness, and his dad couldn't handle it, so he left to buy cigarettes and never came back. Without money for rent, they were forced to move to a cheaper place, but Yui was struggling to adjust. Akira did his best to convince his sister they needed to stick together and help each other, because that's what family does, it needs to stay united. After moving, the boy started cooking since his mom didn't have the strength. Seeing her brother's effort, Yui got motivated to help, offering to cook sometimes, even though she didn't like it. Thinking about this makes him remember how much he misses his family, and it also makes him wonder what would happen if he killed Graham and went back home, because he doubts he could face his family with blood on his hands. And this part, at least for me, is what gives weight to the narrative, because he isn't refusing just to be a good guy, but out of principle. Then the scene changes, and we go to Japan, where we discover it's been a month since the summoning, which is now called the mass disappearance event. No one knows what happened, and there are several searches for the students, but Yui and Akira's mom, who are at home, are sure he'll find a way back to them. After all, the family needs to stay united, and that ending was a punch in the gut.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex, and today I woke up with some throat discomfort, so my voice will sound a bit different. However, the love and dedication for the recaps are always the same. I always strive to do my best for you. Knight and Laddie have just arrived in the city of Uruk, and the cat wants to start gathering information for Akira immediately. But the demon keeps dragging him around to go sightseeing. In the end, they accomplished almost nothing all day. Eventually, Laddie gets tired of playing and decides to work. She stops a passing adventurer and mentions she heard the local guild offers well-paid jobs, hoping he'll spill some information. The guy says she'd better stay away from the guild because most of the well-paid jobs there are linked to crimes or demons. The girl asks what kind of crimes, but the adventurer says it's not good to talk about that in public. Normally, he wouldn't even mention it, but he was distracted by Laddie's assets. After the guy leaves, Knight receives a telepathic order from Akira that seems urgent, so he needs to leave right now. This time, the demon offers some real help. Eventually, the two arrive in front of Graham's mansion, and it is much bigger than they imagined. The mission is to get proof of the noble's crimes, so they need to get in somehow. But Laddie says it would be much easier to bypass security after dark, so they suggest coming back later. The cat agrees. In the meantime, he suggests going to the guild to see what they can find out. Shortly after, they arrive at the front door. But just as Knight starts thinking about the best way to enter without drawing attention, Laddie just walks right in without a care in the world. Inside, a group of 4 adventurers is drinking. They notice the girl immediately and say the guild is already closed, telling her to beat it. If that's the case, Laddie asks why the 4 of them are still there.
One of them explains that all adventurers who do Graham's dirty work get free booze after hours.
But when she asks what kind of work, he says it's a secret and tells her to leave again. However, his friend also seems distracted by Laddie's melons, so he says he's willing to talk if she does him a little favor. But he starts getting a bit too handsy, so the demon politely sits him down on the floor against his will and leaves. Outside, Knight says that's exactly why you should have a plan before going in. But Laddie says everything worked out fine. She managed to get a useful piece of info. The interior ceiling of the guild and the exterior don't match up, which means there's likely a secret room. And with that in mind, she wants Knight to go check it out. So she throws the cat into one of the building's ventilation ducts. Knight isn't a fan of being thrown, but it got him inside. He starts searching and ends up seeing a paper on a table with alarming information. He and Laddie immediately return to Akira with the paper. The protagonist thanks them for their help. He looks at the document and sees details about the production and distribution of an enhancement drug, as well as slave trafficking and lending mercenaries to the Kingdom of Redis. It seems everything Crow said about Graham was true, but Akira is still worried. These documents are probably real, as it would be hard to fake something like this, but the assassin thinks it was too easy to get them. Laddie agrees, because it makes no sense for Graham to keep such sensitive information in the guild when he could hide it in his giant mansion. Crow believes the only explanation is that the noble wanted the documents to be stolen, just not by Knight. Meanwhile, we see Graham in a meeting with his subordinates. He says some important documents went missing recently. The men panic, but the noble says they don't need to worry, as he knows they didn't steal them. He left the papers there on purpose to sniff out the traitor among them, but someone else ended up taking the documents first. That said, he knows the guy on the left was leaking information, so he orders the guards to kill him immediately. After that, he tells the others they can continue business as usual, but he wants them to track down whoever stole the documents from the guild. Back at the hotel, Crow explains to Akira that he believes all of this was an attempt to instigate a war. One of Graham's subordinates was likely being paid to leak information to the Kingdom of Redis. But before he could grab the documents, Knight stole them first. The protagonist asks why Redis would try to start a war. The blacksmith explains that the King of Redis wants to use the chaos to resurrect his dead wife. Amelia thinks that's impossible, since her resurrection spell only works a few days after death. But Crow says there is another spell called Equivalent Exchange. Apparently, it can bring someone back without a time limit, but it costs countless lives. So, starting a war is the most efficient way to get those lives. Laddie hates the idea and says she won't let it happen, but Knight wonders how Crow knows so much about Redis's affairs. The blacksmith explains that he is very close to Jill, who used to be a knight there. In fact, the reason Jill was fired was because he stopped the king's previous attempt to start a war with the nation of Yamato. Akira gets furious hearing all this and starts tearing up the documents to ensure the King of Redis doesn't get his excuse for war. But Crow says he is wasting his time. As long as Graham continues trafficking people from Redis, more evidence will surface and eventually reach the kingdom. Furthermore, most of Akira's classmates are still at the royal palace. When the war breaks out, they will likely be sent to the front lines and be the first to die. The protagonist doesn't care much for most of his classmates, except Asahina, but simply letting them die would leave a bad taste in his mouth. So, there isn't much of a choice. He knows that if he eliminates Graham, he can at least stop the war for now, but it's hard to accept that. Laddie realizes the mood has gotten tense. So to lighten things up, she mentions she found a restaurant with a meat buffet on sale, and there's a bookstore nearby. She knows Amelia loves eating, and Akira loves reading, so she thought it would be a great way to distract them. Everyone agrees. Akira thinks it's good to take a break. He plans to go to the bookstore while the girls go to the restaurant. While the protagonist looks at some books, a suspicious man grabs his bag and runs into the alleys. Knight manages to recover it, but is surprised his master was distracted enough to be robbed by a nobody. Akira says he has a lot on his mind. The cat knows what's bothering him and asks if he wants to talk. They go to a fountain, and the young man says he can't get what Laddie said out of his head. She mentioned that killing someone is like stealing that person's story. But killing Graham is the most logical choice here, and he is literally an assassin. So he is the best choice for the job, even though he hasn't actually killed anyone yet. Back in the dungeon, he couldn't kill the demon, even when it was trying to kill him. Maybe he isn't cut out for this. Knight says the most important thing is that he survived. It doesn't matter that he didn't manage to kill. Akira asks if he's saying that just to make him feel better, but the familiar says he is serious. He doesn't want Akira to end up like he was in the past. When you take a life, your heart begins to dry up. The more lives you take, the less you feel. He hates the idea of his master going through that. But, at the same time, there are cases where you cannot avoid taking down the enemy if it means protecting those you love. In those cases, there is no need to blame yourself. The protagonist realizes the cat is right, but still hesitates. He assumes it must be because he is weak. But, on the contrary, Knight says he is the strongest person he knows. It was he who gave the cat a chance to change for the better. And although he doesn't know why the Demon Lord changed his mind about meeting Akira, he is determined to stay by his side until the end. He even offers to carry out the assassination in his master's place if he wants. But Akira says he isn't enough of a coward to dump his burden on his familiar. He will handle it himself. First, he plans to investigate Graham personally to ensure he truly deserves death. After that, he will decide whether to go through with the assassination or not. To do this, Akira gathers the others, and they all go to the guild. Amelia is confused, thinking it would make more sense to go to the mansion if they wanted to find the noble. The protagonist says there is no way Graham would agree to meet them. But since he owns the guild, he will likely show up there sooner or later. He plans to go in and ask the staff what time the boss usually appears. Laddie fears being recognized since she was there recently, so she decides to wait outside. As soon as the couple enters, a guy at the counter notices them and says this is no place for kids, telling them to leave. Amelia says she has no business with him. They just want to know when the guild master will be there. But she was quite rude, so the guy took offense and stood up to teach her a lesson. He throws a punch, but Akira catches it easily. He is about to kick back, but before things heat up, a woman in a wheelchair comes out from the back and shouts at Raoul to stop causing trouble. She goes over to the couple and apologizes for the brute's behavior. But after taking a good look, she realizes they are Princess Amelia and the silent assassin. Raoul realizes he messed up right away. To make up for it, he makes 2 teas for them and apologizes sincerely. The woman, Korea, can't believe her colleague didn't recognize Akira, despite being a huge fan of his. Apparently, Raoul was there when the protagonist cleared that massive horde of monsters. After witnessing that magnificent display of power, he became a fanatic fan, but didn't think Akira would look so ordinary in person. Karia assures them that Raoul can be a hot-headed idiot, but he isn't a bad person. The guy then throws himself on the floor to apologize again and asks if Akira would consider accepting him as an apprentice. The protagonist says he doesn't accept apprentices, so he is wasting his time. At that moment, the front door opens, and our hero has a pretty good idea of who it is. There are cameras all over the room, meaning Graham was probably spying from the moment they entered. He seems particularly interested in Amelia. He turns to her, introduces himself, and with the entrance of this new villain, today's episode comes to an end. Will Akira confirm that Graham deserves to die? And what, after all, does this noble want with Amelia? Leave your theories in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the next part.